I am Violet, 32 years old, and a dedicated account manager at a financial software company with an excellent track record. That was until my boss denied my $5,000 business trip request with a condescending smirk. Little did she know that her simple rejection would spiral into a costly lesson for our entire company. Sometimes the most expensive decision is saying no to the right investment, especially when client relationships worth millions are at stake. What happened next changed not just my career trajectory but our entire corporate culture. If you are enjoying this story so far, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to catch more stories of workplace justice. Now let me take you through how saving $5,000 cost my company 15 times that amount. I graduated with a double major in business administration and computer science from University of Washington. Always the overachiever, I finished in the top 10% of my class, while working part-time to cover living expenses. My combination of technical knowledge and business acumen made me an attractive candidate for several companies, but FinTech Solutions won me over with their innovative products and promise of growth opportunities. When I joined FinTech Solutions 6 years ago, I started as a junior account specialist. The company specialized in developing custom financial software for medium to large businesses, helping them streamline everything from payroll to investment portfolios. Within 2 years, I had proven myself capable enough to be promoted to account manager, handling several major clients directly. By year 4, I was managing our relationship with Riverside Enterprises, a manufacturing conglomerate worth $2 million in annual revenue to our company. The culture at FinTech Solutions was intensely competitive. We had quarterly performance reviews, and the bottom 10% of performers received improvement plans. 3 consecutive quarters on an improvement plan meant termination. This created an environment where results mattered above all else, and interdepartmental cooperation sometimes suffered as everyone fought to protect their own metrics. My department head, Margaret embodied this cutthroat mentality. At 55 years old, Margaret had climbed the corporate ladder through shrewd politics rather than technical expertise. She micromanaged her team relentlessly, taking credit for successes while deflecting failures onto subordinates. Her signature move was finding ways to reduce departmental expenses, as her quarterly bonus was tied directly to staying under budget. Thomas Reed, our CEO, was a visionary when it came to product development, but often deferred to his department heads on operational matters. At 62, he had founded the company 15 years earlier and still maintained majority ownership. While generally fair, he trusted Margaret, implicitly having worked with her for over a decade. Jeffrey Parker, a fellow account manager, became my closest ally at work. At 41, he had been with the company for 8 years and knew all its inner workings. He often provided insights into the politics behind certain decisions and helped navigate tricky situations with difficult clients or managers. Sarah Chen from the implementation team had also faced similar treatment from Margaret. She had been denied critical resources for client projects multiple times, forcing her to work nights and weekends to compensate. Her experiences mirrored mine in many ways, though she handled them with remarkable patience. Riverside Enterprises, my major account, had implemented our financial management system 3 years earlier. As their dedicated account manager, I had built a strong relationship with their Chief Technology Officer, Bradley Thompson. Bradley was a straight shooter who valued competence and honesty above all else. He had specifically requested me as his point of contact after our initial implementation went smoothly despite some technical challenges. The implementation had been complex, integrating our software with their legacy systems across 5 manufacturing plants and 3 administrative offices. For 3 years, everything ran relatively smoothly with only minor issues resolved through remote support. Riverside saw productivity improvements of 15% and cost reductions of 12% after implementing our system, making it a showcase example I often referenced when pitching to prospective clients. However, 6 months ago, Riverside began experiencing integration issues after upgrading some of their internal systems. Their accounting department reported discrepancies in inventory tracking and payroll processing, started taking 3 times longer than before. These issues gradually worsened despite multiple remote troubleshooting sessions. My track record at maintaining client relationships was stellar. In 5 years, I had never lost an account and had expanded services with 80% of my clients. I prided myself on understanding both the technical aspects of our product and the business needs of our clients, allowing me to translate between engineers and executives effectively. Our industry was fiercely competitive, with several companies offering similar services. TechFin Dynamics, our most aggressive competitor, had been trying to poach Riverside for years. Their sales team regularly invited Bradley to lavish dinners and sporting events, something our company policy prohibited. Instead, I maintained our relationship through reliability, expertise, and genuine problem-solving. The stage was set for what would become the most challenging and ultimately vindicating experience of my professional career. As the issues at Riverside grew more serious, I could feel the pressure mounting from both sides. I needed to resolve their problems to protect our relationship, but I also needed internal support from fintech solutions to make that happen. What I did not know was how dramatically one denied request would change everything. The crisis began on a Tuesday morning when Bradley called me directly instead of submitting a ticket through our support system. His voice carried an edge I had never heard before. "Violet, these system issues are getting out of hand," he said, bypassing our usual friendly exchange. "The integration problems between your software and our inventory management system have caused 3 shipments to be delayed this week alone. Our CEO is asking questions I cannot answer." I spent nearly 2 hours on the phone with Bradley as he walked me through the specific issues. The problems were complex, involving data synchronization between multiple systems that worked fine individually but failed at critical integration points. After consulting with our technical team, it became clear this was not something we could reliably fix remotely. The systems were too interconnected, and we needed direct access to their physical servers to diagnose certain hardware communication issues. "Bradley, I believe I need to come on site with one of our senior systems architects," I explained. "These integration points are too complex to troubleshoot effectively over remote sessions." "That is what I have been saying for weeks," he replied, the frustration evident in his voice. "How soon can you be here?" I promised to get approval for travel immediately and have a plan to him by the end of the day. After the call, I meticulously prepared a travel proposal with detailed justification. The total came to just under $5,000, covering flights, accommodations, and meals for a 3-day visit for myself and a systems architect. I included documentation from our technical team explaining why remote troubleshooting was insufficient and an analysis of the potential revenue at risk if the problems persisted. With my carefully prepared proposal, I scheduled a meeting with Margaret that afternoon. As I entered her office, I noticed she was reviewing department expense reports. Her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. "Make it quick, Violet. The quarterly budget review is tomorrow," she said without looking up. I explained the situation at Riverside, the technical complexity of the issues, and the urgent need for an on-site visit. As I spoke, Margaret continued scanning her reports, occasionally nodding without making eye contact. When I finished, she finally looked up. "Let me see your travel proposal," she said, extending her hand. I passed her the document, confident in my thorough preparation. She flipped through it quickly, barely scanning the technical justifications or risk assessments. $5,000 for a 3-day trip. "That seems excessive," she remarked, setting the proposal aside. "The flights are more expensive because of the short notice," I explained. "And we need to bring Jason from Systems Architecture to address the hardware integration issues." Margaret leaned back in her chair and folded her arms. "We are not paying for your little $5,000 vacation," she said with a dismissive wave. "Have you tried additional remote sessions? Perhaps schedule some early morning or late night calls to avoid their business hours." I felt my face flush with frustration. "Margaret, we have already conducted 12 remote sessions. Their issues involve physical server connections that we cannot diagnose remotely. Bradley specifically requested an on-site visit." "Clients always want the premium service," she replied condescendingly. "That does not mean we need to provide it. Find a way to fix it remotely. That is what we pay you for." As I pressed further, Margaret revealed her real concern. "The department is already 3% over budget this quarter. Any additional expenses will impact our performance metrics." What she did not say, but I knew from Jeffrey, was that her quarterly bonus was tied directly to keeping expenses under a certain threshold. Realizing Margaret would not budge, I requested an emergency meeting with Thomas. To my surprise, he agreed to see me that same day. I repeated my case to him, emphasizing the revenue at risk and the technical necessity of an on-site visit. "I understand your concerns," Violet Thomas said after hearing me out. "But I trust Margaret's judgment on departmental expenditures. She has consistently kept costs under control while maintaining client satisfaction. If she believes remote troubleshooting is sufficient, then I support that decision." I left Thomas's office feeling defeated and undervalued. That evening, I vented to Jeffrey over drinks at a nearby bar. "I am not surprised," Jeffrey said after hearing my story. "Last year, Margaret denied my travel request to visit National Bank when they were having similar issues. We ended up losing 30% of their business to regional competitors. She still got her bonus, though." "How does she get away with it?" I asked. Jeffrey lowered his voice. "Have you noticed she never misses the annual financial software conference in Las Vegas? That trip costs over $10,000, but she classifies it as industry research instead of travel expenses. Meanwhile, client visits that could save accounts get denied." The next day, I had another difficult call with Bradley, explaining that we would continue with remote troubleshooting. His disappointment was palpable. "Violet, we have been trying that approach for weeks, without success," he said. "I need to inform our executive team about this development. They may want to explore other options." The mention of other options sent a chill down my spine. In our industry, that typically meant looking at competitors. I spent the rest of the day documenting all our communication about the travel request, sensing that I might need this record later. I also began updating my resume just in case. The unfairness of the situation left me feeling angry and helpless, emotions I rarely experienced in my professional life. The next 2 weeks were increasingly stressful, as Bradley's frustration mounted with each failed remote troubleshooting attempt. Our technical team tried everything possible without being on site, including extended weekend sessions and specialized diagnostic tools shared through secure connections. Nothing resolved the core integration issues. The problems at Riverside were becoming increasingly costly. Their inventory system showed phantom stock that did not actually exist, causing their purchasing department to delay orders for raw materials. When production lines ran out of components, entire shifts sat idle, costing approximately $20,000 per week in lost productivity. Additionally, their payroll system was processing at such a slow rate that they had to add 3 temporary staff members just to ensure employees were paid on time. My daily calls with Bradley grew more tense. What started as friendly professional conversations devolved into strained exchanges where I could hear the mounting pressure he was facing from his own executives. "Violet, I just spent 45 minutes explaining to our chief financial officer why we are still having these issues after 6 weeks of troubleshooting," Bradley said during one particularly difficult call. "He pointed out that we pay your company $2 million annually for software that is currently causing more problems than it solves." I apologized again and outlined our latest remote approach, knowing it was insufficient. Bradley sighed heavily before dropping a bombshell. "I should let you know that Thomas Williams from Vindication visited our offices yesterday," he said casually, though I knew the statement was anything but casual. He brought their chief systems architect, who seemed quite knowledgeable about integration issues like ours. My stomach tightened. Vindication was our biggest competitor, and they had been trying to poach Riverside for years. The fact that they were now being invited into Riverside's offices was a major red flag. "Bradley, I understand your frustration," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have escalated this issue multiple times and will continue pushing for an on-site visit." "I appreciate your efforts, Violet," he replied, his tone softening slightly. "I know this is not your decision, but my team needs a solution soon, not more escalations." After that call, I meticulously documented every failed troubleshooting attempt, every hour spent, and every impact reported by Riverside. The document grew to 35 pages of technical notes, timestamps, and outcome summaries. I was building a case, though I was not yet sure how I would use it. I also spoke with Sarah from the implementation team, who had faced similar situations with other clients. "Last year, I warned Margaret that premium retail needed on-site support for their point-of-sale upgrades," Sarah told me. She denied the travel request, saying video conferencing was sufficient. 3 weeks later, their system crashed during Black Friday sales. We lost the account and had to issue a $100,000 service credit. This pattern of short-sighted cost-cutting was clearly damaging our company. Yet Margaret continued to receive praise for her budget management. The disconnect was infuriating. After another week of failed remote attempts, I made a difficult decision. During my next call with Bradley, I was completely transparent. "Bradley, I need to be honest with you," I said. "I have requested authorization for an on-site visit multiple times, but it has been denied due to budget constraints. The technical team and I believe this is the only way to properly resolve your issues, but I have been unable to get approval." There was a long pause before Bradley responded. "I suspected as much. Thank you for your honesty, Violet. This changes my approach going forward." "What do you mean?" I asked, concerned. "I will be taking this information to our chief executive officer," he replied. "Riverside has been a loyal customer for 3 years, and we expected the same loyalty in return. If your company values $5,000 over our $2 million relationship, our executive team needs to know that." After we hung up, I felt a mixture of dread and vindication. I had potentially put my job at risk by being honest, but my professional integrity demanded nothing less. Clients deserve transparency, especially when the issues affected their business operations so significantly. The next day, Jeffrey stopped by my desk with a concerned expression. "There are rumors that Riverside is considering breaking their contract," he whispered. "The executive team is getting nervous." "What is happening?" I explained the situation briefly, and Jeffrey shook his head in disbelief. "You did the right thing being honest with them," he assured me. "But Margaret will try to make you the scapegoat if this goes south. Document everything." "Already done," I replied, patting my extensive troubleshooting log. 6 weeks of evidence that remote solutions were insufficient. By the end of the week, the situation had escalated further. Bradley informed me that Riverside was holding an emergency board meeting to discuss their software partnerships. The subtext was clear: our contract was being reevaluated. I updated my what-if document, calculating the full financial impact of losing Riverside as a client. Beyond the $2 million in annual revenue, there would be reputational damage, potential legal costs for contract termination, and the loss of a reference customer we frequently showcase to prospects. Through my network of contacts at Riverside, I learned that Vindication had submitted a formal proposal to take over their financial systems management. They had apparently offered a 20% discount for the first year and guaranteed on-site support for implementation and major troubleshooting. It was a direct response to our failure to provide the on-site assistance Riverside needed. As these developments unfolded, Jeffrey warned me that Margaret had been speaking negatively about my client management skills to other department heads. "She is setting you up as the fall person," he said. "Be prepared for her to claim you did not properly communicate the severity of the issues." I updated my resume that night and reached out to a few industry contacts about potential opportunities. While I hoped the situation would improve, I needed to protect my professional future. The sense of unfairness burned. But I remained focused on doing my job to the best of my ability under the circumstances. The next few days would determine whether my honesty would cost me my job or lead to much-needed changes at FinTech Solutions. With Vindication circling and Riverside increasingly frustrated, I knew I needed a strategic approach rather than just hoping for the best. I had always been methodical, and now that trait would serve me well. I began by consolidating all the documentation I had been gathering into a comprehensive analysis. First, I created a detailed spreadsheet tracking every remote troubleshooting session we had conducted over the past 6 weeks. The numbers were staggering: 127 hours of technical support time, including 32 hours of my own time coordinating and communicating. At our standard billing rates, this represented over $15,000 in labor costs, already spent trying to solve the problem remotely. Next, I prepared a comparative analysis showing how my original $5,000 travel proposal would have likely resolved the issues within 3 days, saving the company at least $10,000 in excess labor costs. I included conservative estimates of the cost to Riverside in terms of productivity losses and temporary staffing, which now exceeded $100,000 based on their reports. Finally, I drafted a careful email to Bradley attaching a technical summary of why remote troubleshooting was hitting a wall. I explained the specific hardware integration points that required physical access and included statements from our senior systems architects confirming this assessment. I avoided any language that could be construed as criticizing my company's decision-making, but made the technical limitations abundantly clear. Bradley's response came within the hour. "Thank you for this detailed explanation, Violet. I have forwarded this to our executive team. Our CEO has requested a meeting with your executive team to discuss our partnership moving forward. I should warn you that TechFin Dynamics has made a compelling offer with guaranteed on-site support included in their contract terms." The mention of a meeting between CEOs indicated this had escalated to the highest level possible. I forwarded Bradley's email to Thomas and Margaret with a neutral message for your information regarding the situation at Riverside, available to discuss as needed. Through my network of contacts within Riverside, I learned that their board had called an emergency meeting to review their software vendor relationships. My primary contact in their accounting department, Jessica Miller, texted me, "Big meeting happening tomorrow about your company. TechFin. Presented yesterday. Not looking good." This information allowed me to prepare a what-if document analyzing the full financial implications of losing Riverside's business. Beyond the obvious $2 million in annual revenue, there were numerous hidden costs: the expense of transitioning services to a new provider, potential legal fees for contract termination, the loss of Riverside as a reference customer, and the pros and ripple effect on other clients who might hear about the situation. In total, I estimated the value of retaining Riverside at approximately $12 million over the next 5 years. Compared to my rejected $5,000 travel request, the numbers were absurd. Meanwhile, I continued to maintain my relationships with other contacts at Riverside. I had built strong connections with their financial team, IT department, and several plant managers over the years. I reached out to each with personalized messages checking on other aspects of their business, careful not to mention the ongoing issues, but reminding them of our positive working relationship. Midweek, I received an alarming call from Jessica at Riverside. "Violet, I probably should not be telling you this, but TechFin Dynamics submitted a formal proposal yesterday. They are offering a 20% discount for the first year and unlimited on-site support. They also brought their technical team to do a preliminary assessment, and they claim they can fix our current issues within a week." I thanked Jessica for the information and immediately updated my documentation. The situation was deteriorating faster than I had anticipated. That afternoon, Jeffrey stopped by my desk with a concerned expression. "Margaret has been meeting with Thomas all morning," he whispered. "Word is that Riverside sent some kind of formal notification. She has also been telling people that you mishandled the account by not communicating the severity of the issues early enough." I was prepared for this blame shifting. I have copies of every email where I requested travel authorization and explained the technical necessities. I replied calmly, including her exact words declining the request. Jeffrey nodded approvingly. "Smart. You might need those soon. Thomas has called an emergency executive meeting for tomorrow morning. The rumor is that it is about Riverside." That evening, I carefully prepared a folder with all my documentation, including the comparative cost analysis, the communication timeline, and the projections of revenue at risk. I also updated my resume and LinkedIn profile just in case, while I hoped for a resolution that would keep both my job and the client. I needed to be prepared for all scenarios. As I reviewed my materials one last time, I realized that this situation represented more than just a professional challenge. It was a test of integrity and value. If FinTech Solutions was the kind of company that would sacrifice client relationships to save $5,000, perhaps it was not where I belonged long-term. With that thought, I found a strange sense of calm. Whatever happened next, I had done my job with integrity and had the documentation to prove it. The following morning, Thomas called an all-hands emergency meeting for the executive team. To my surprise, I received an invitation as well, along with Jeffrey and the head of our technical support team. As we filed into the conference room, the tension was palpable. Margaret sat near Thomas, her posture rigid and her expression carefully neutral. Thomas began without preamble. "We have received formal notification from Riverside Enterprises that they are putting their contract under review. They have cited ongoing technical issues and our apparent unwillingness to provide adequate on-site support." He looked around the room, his gaze lingering on Margaret. "This represents $2 million in annual revenue at immediate risk. I want to understand how we got here." Margaret immediately took control of the narrative. "This appears to be a communication failure at the account management level." she said, glancing pointedly in my direction. The severity of these issues was not properly escalated until recently. I maintained my composure as she continued to subtly shift blame toward me, suggesting that I had not adequately conveyed the technical complexities or the client's frustration. When she finished, Thomas turned to me. "Violet, you are Riverside's account manager. What is your perspective on this situation?" This was the moment I had prepared for. I opened my folder and distributed copies of my timeline document to everyone at the table. For the past 6 weeks, Riverside has experienced critical integration issues that have significantly impacted their operations. I began calmly. On March 10th, after 12 remote troubleshooting sessions failed to resolve the problems, I submitted this travel request for an on-site visit. I slid the original proposal across the table. The request was denied by Margaret on March 11th with the exact words, and I quote, "We are not paying for your little $5,000 vacation." Several executives shifted uncomfortably as I continued through my methodical timeline, highlighting each escalation attempt and corresponding denial. I then shared the cost analysis document. To date, we have spent 127 hours on remote troubleshooting at a labor cost of approximately $15,000. Meanwhile, Riverside has incurred productivity losses exceeding $100,000 due to the unresolved issues. Thomas's expression darkened as he reviewed the numbers. "And TechFin Dynamics is now involved." I nodded. "They have submitted a formal proposal to Riverside offering a 20% first-year discount and unlimited on-site support. Their technical team has already visited Riverside's headquarters and promised a resolution within 1 week." The financial team representative spoke up. "The potential revenue loss goes beyond the $2 million annual contract. Riverside is one of our showcase clients. Losing them would impact our ability to secure new business in the manufacturing sector." Thomas turned to our technical support lead. "Could these issues have been resolved with an on-site visit?" The technical lead nodded without hesitation. "Almost certainly. The integration problems involve hardware communication protocols that are extremely difficult to diagnose remotely. We have been saying for weeks that we need physical access to their servers." The reality of the situation was sinking in around the table. What had begun as a $5,000 travel request had escalated into a potential multi-million-dollar loss. Thomas made a swift decision. "We need to send an emergency response team to Riverside immediately. Today, if possible." He turned to the technical lead. "Who are your best people for this kind of integration issue?" "Jason Miller and Rebecca Johnson," he replied promptly. "And given the client relationship aspect, we should send a senior account manager as well." All eyes turned to me, but Margaret quickly intervened. "I think Jeffrey would be more appropriate given the sensitive nature of the situation. Violet is too close to the problem." I remained silent, recognizing this as another attempt to sideline me and avoid accountability for her decision. To my surprise, Jeffrey spoke up. "With all due respect, Margaret Violet has the strongest relationship with Bradley and the Riverside team. They trust her. Sending someone new at this critical juncture would only further damage our credibility." Thomas considered this for a moment, then made his decision. "Send Jason, Rebecca, and Jeffrey. Have them on a plane today." He turned to our travel coordinator. "Make it happen, whatever the cost." The travel coordinator nodded. "Last-minute flights for 3 people will be approximately $7,000 per person, with the required direct routes. Plus accommodations and expedited per diems, we are looking at around $25,000 total." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room as everyone processed this number 5 times the original travel request. Thomas finally broke the silence. "Get it done, and I want daily updates on the situation." As the meeting concluded, Jeffrey caught my eye with a subtle nod. Later, he stopped by my desk to fill me in on the details left unspoken. "Margaret tried to block your timeline document from being distributed," he whispered. Thomas overruled her. "Also, the technical team is skeptical they can fix this remotely. They are going mostly for show, while the executives figure out how to handle the larger contract issues." The emergency team departed that afternoon on premium-priced flights. The office was abuzz with rumors about Riverside and the potential fallout. Several colleagues stopped by to express support having experienced similar frustrations with travel denials under Margaret's leadership. That evening, Bradley called me directly, bypassing our ticketing system once again. "Your team is coming tomorrow," he said. "But I want you to know that our CEO is not impressed with this last-minute scramble. We requested on-site assistance 6 weeks ago. The emergency response feels like too little too late." My heart sank. "I understand, Bradley. I wish I could be there myself to help resolve this." "So do I," he replied. "The team from TechFin made a strong impression yesterday. Their proposal is on our CEO's desk, just so you know." After hanging up, I forwarded a summary of this conversation to Thomas, copying Jeffrey but deliberately excluding Margaret. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, and I needed to ensure the information reached decision-makers without being filtered. The next day brought news that confirmed my worst fears. The emergency team reported significant challenges at Riverside. Bradley was cooperative but reserved, and other executives were notably cold toward our representatives. Most concerning was Bradley's revelation that Riverside's board had scheduled a vote on their software provider contract for the following Monday. We had 3 days to save a $2 million account that had been put at risk to save $5,000. The irony was not lost on anyone. Monday morning arrived with a sense of impending doom. Over the weekend, our emergency team had made some progress on Riverside's technical issues but had not fully resolved them. More concerning were Jeffrey's reports about the political climate there. "The TechFin team has been in and out all weekend," he texted me Sunday night. "They brought their CEO yesterday for a private meeting with Riverside's executive team. Bradley is trying to help us, but I think he is fighting an uphill battle." Thomas called another emergency board meeting for Monday at 10 in the morning. To my surprise, I received an invitation along with the emergency team who would join remotely from Riverside. As I entered the boardroom, I noticed several board members I had never met in person before, indicating the severity of the situation. Margaret sat near Thomas again, her expression unreadable. I took a seat at the far end of the table, keeping my documentation folder close at hand. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife as everyone waited for news from Riverside. Thomas began the meeting with a grim update. "Our team at Riverside has made some progress with the technical issues, but we have reason to believe Riverside's board is voting on their software provider contract today. Jeffrey will join us shortly with an update from the ground." As if on cue, Jeffrey connected to the conference line. His voice was tight with stress. "I am currently in Riverside's visitor lounge. Their board meeting started 30 minutes ago. Bradley was called in about 10 minutes ago but has not come out yet. The TechFin CEO and their legal counsel are also here." Thomas thanked Jeffrey and addressed the room. "We need to discuss contingency plans if we lose this account. Financial team, what are the implications for this quarter and the fiscal year?" As the financial team began reviewing projections, Margaret interjected. "I think we should also discuss how this account was managed. There were clearly communication failures that exacerbated the situation." I bit my tongue, recognizing another attempt to shift blame. The discussion continued with various executives offering perspectives on damage control and client retention strategies. Throughout it all, I remained silent, waiting for concrete information from Riverside before adding my voice. 45 minutes into the meeting, Jeffrey texted me directly. "Something big happening. Bradley just walked out with their CEO and asked me to prepare for a video call with your boardroom." I quietly passed this information to Thomas, who immediately directed our IT support to set up the video conference. Within minutes, the large screen at the end of the boardroom displayed Bradley and Riverside's CEO Albert Richardson. "Mr. Reed, thank you for accommodating this call on short notice." Albert began formally. "Our board has just concluded a discussion regarding our software partnership. Before we finalize our decision, we wanted to address some concerns directly." Thomas leaned forward. "We appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Richardson. We value our partnership with Riverside and want to ensure your needs are met." Albert nodded curtly. "For the past 6 weeks, our operations have been significantly impacted by integration issues with your software. Despite multiple requests for on-site assistance, we were denied this basic level of support until the situation became critical. This raises serious questions about how FinTech Solutions values our $2 million annual contract. I understand your frustration. Thomas replied carefully. There was a miscommunication regarding the severity of the issues and the necessity of on-site support. Albert's expression hardened. There was no miscommunication on our end, Mr. Reed. We have copies of multiple emails from Violet explicitly requesting on-site support and explaining the technical necessity. We also have confirmation that this request was denied for budgetary reasons despite the significant operational costs we were incurring daily. The room fell completely silent. All eyes turned briefly to Margaret, whose face had drained of color. Thomas appeared momentarily thrown off balance but recovered quickly. You are right, and we take full responsibility for that decision. We are committed to resolving your technical issues and rebuilding your trust. Albert held up an envelope. We have prepared 2 letters. One terminates our contract effective immediately with a formal complaint about breach of support obligations. The other amends our existing contract with new terms. He paused significantly. The choice of which letter we send depends on your answer to one question. Will Violet be personally managing our account and authorized to provide the on-site support we require when needed? The question hung in the air like a thunderclap. Thomas glanced at me, then back at the screen. May I ask why this specific condition is important to you? Bradley spoke up for the first time. Violet has been our trusted advisor for 3 years. She understood our technical needs and advocated for proper support, even when it was denied internally. We trust her judgment and expertise. The rest of your emergency team has been helpful, but they lack the history and relationship we have built with Violet. Albert nodded in agreement. Additionally, we require compensation for the productivity losses incurred during the 6 weeks when on-site support was denied. Our financial team estimates these losses at $152,000. The total was staggering, more than 30 times the original travel request. There was another moment of heavy silence before a letter was delivered to our conference room. The timing seemed almost theatrical, as if Riverside had coordinated the delivery to coincide exactly with this moment in the video call. Thomas opened the envelope and read the contents, his expression freezing in shock. He passed the letter to our legal counsel, who reviewed it quickly and nodded grimly. Without a word, Thomas slid the letter across the table to Margaret, saying simply, "This is on you." From my position, I could not see the contents, but Margaret's face told the story. She looked as though she had been struck. Whatever was in that letter had removed any possibility of further blame shifting. Albert continued from the video screen. We value partnerships where expertise and client needs are prioritized over short-term cost savings. The decision about which letter we send is entirely in your hands. Mr. Reed. Thomas straightened in his chair. Violet will absolutely continue as your dedicated account manager with full authority to approve necessary on-site support. We will also thoroughly review our travel approval processes to ensure this situation never happens again. He glanced toward our legal counsel, who nodded. Regarding the compensation for productivity losses, we accept responsibility and will work with your financial team on an appropriate resolution. Albert and Bradley exchanged a look before Albert responded. That is what we hope to hear. We will proceed with the contract amendment rather than termination. Bradley will work with Violet on immediate next steps. He paused, then added pointedly, we suggest she come on site as soon as possible to oversee the resolution of our remaining issues. After the call ended, the room remained silent for several long moments. Thomas finally spoke. Violet, book the next flight to Riverside. Take whatever technical resources you need. Budget is not a concern. He turned to our travel coordinator. Arrange everything at the highest priority level. As the meeting adjourned, executives filed out quickly, many avoiding eye contact with Margaret. Thomas asked me and Margaret to stay behind. Once we were alone, he placed the letter on the table between us. This is a formal complaint specifically naming Margaret as the reason they considered terminating the contract, he explained, his voice tightly controlled. They have documentation of every interaction where on-site support was requested and denied, including direct quotes. Their legal team believes this constitutes a breach of our support obligations under the contract. Margaret began to speak, but Thomas held up his hand. The decision to deny a $5,000 travel request has now cost us a minimum of $150,000 in compensation, plus approximately $25,000 in emergency response costs. and we came within inches of losing a $2 million annual contract. He took a deep breath. We will discuss your role going forward in a private meeting. For now, Violet needs to get to Riverside and repair this relationship. As I left the conference room, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Vindication, certainly, but also concern for the company and even a touch of sympathy for Margaret, whose cost-cutting measures had finally caught up with her. Most of all, I felt a renewed sense of professional purpose. My commitment to client needs had been recognized and valued, not just by Riverside, but now by fintech solutions as well. The aftermath of the Riverside crisis brought dramatic changes both professionally and personally. Thomas personally walked me to my desk after the board meeting. "Violet, I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "You did everything right in this situation and we failed to support you. That changes today." He authorized a first-class flight to Riverside that same afternoon and gave me full authority to approve any resources needed to resolve their issues. Before I left, he added, "When you return, we should discuss your role going forward. We need more leaders who prioritize client relationships over short-term savings." My arrival at Riverside was like night and day compared to our emergency team's experience. Bradley met me at reception with a warm handshake and visible relief. "Thank you for coming, Violet. It means a lot that you are here personally." The technical issues that had seemed insurmountable remotely were resolved within 3 days once we had physical access to their systems. The problem involved a hardware communication protocol that was impossible to diagnose properly through remote connections. Just as I had originally assessed, the on-site visit was absolutely necessary. During my stay, Bradley and I had dinner one evening where he shared more background on their decision-making process. It was never about the technical issues, he admitted. Those were real, but we could have lived with them longer if necessary. It was about the partnership. When your company refused that $5,000 trip to save us from $100,000 losses, it sent a clear message about how much our relationship was valued. I nodded in understanding, and requesting me specifically. Bradley smiled. "That was my doing. You were the only one who was honest with us about what was happening internally. Everyone else kept making promises they could not keep. Trust matters more than technical capabilities in the long run." When I returned to FinTech Solutions the following week, I found the office culture subtly but significantly changed. Thomas had called a company-wide meeting to announce several structural changes. Margaret had been reassigned to an internal operations role, with no client contact or budget authority. In her place, a new client services director had been appointed with a mandate to prioritize client satisfaction over short-term cost-cutting. Most surprisingly, Thomas announced a complete overhaul of the travel approval process. Effective immediately, account managers have approval authority for client support travel under $10,000 without additional authorization. We are a service company, and we cannot serve our clients effectively without being present when needed. In a private meeting afterward, Thomas offered me a promotion to Senior Client Relations Manager with a 20% salary increase and a team of 3 account specialists reporting to me. "Your handling of the Riverside situation demonstrated exactly the values we need more of in this company," he explained. "We need you to help reshape our client service culture." The months that followed were challenging but rewarding as I helped implement new client service protocols across the company. Jeffrey joked that the Riverside incident, as it came to be known, had become a cautionary tale in budget meetings. Anytime someone tries to deny a reasonable client request to save money, someone else just says, "Remember Riverside," and the discussion is over. The experience changed me profoundly as well. I had always prided myself on my dedication to clients. But now I recognized the importance of standing firm when professional judgment was being overruled by short-sighted policies. Documentation had saved both my job and the client relationship. Without those meticulously kept records, Margaret's attempt to make me the scapegoat might have succeeded. Most importantly, I learned that knowing your worth and standing up for professional standards does not have to mean burning bridges or being confrontational. By remaining focused on client needs and maintaining detailed documentation, I had advocated effectively without becoming adversarial. The compensation agreement with Riverside was finalized at $150,000 in service credits, exactly 30 times the original $5,000 travel request. The irony was not lost on anyone, Least of all, Thomas, who referenced it in his next shareholder meeting as an expensive lesson in false economy. Riverside remained a loyal client, and our relationship actually strengthened through the ordeal. Bradley and I established quarterly on-site reviews to prevent similar issues from developing in the future. Our honest handling of the situation became a selling point, with Riverside serving as a reference for several new major clients who specifically cited our commitment to on-site support as a deciding factor. As for Margaret, she remained with the company but never regained her former influence. I made a point of being professionally cordial with her, recognizing that her cost-cutting approach had once been rewarded and encouraged by the very executives who now criticized it. Systems matter as much as individual decisions. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the most valuable professional experiences come from the most challenging situations. Standing your ground on matters of professional judgment is not just about personal vindication, it is about creating better outcomes for everyone involved. In the end, the $5,000 saved by denying my travel request cost the company over $175,000 in direct expenses and nearly cost us a $2 million annual contract. The lesson was clear: sometimes the most expensive decision you can make is saying no to the right investment. Penny wise and pound foolish, as the saying goes. But beyond the financial implications, this experience taught me the invaluable worth of professional integrity, thorough documentation, and unwavering client advocacy. Has there ever been a time when you stood up for what was right professionally, even when it was difficult? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life workplace experiences. And if you know someone dealing with short-sighted management decisions, share this video as a reminder that sometimes the right path is not the easiest one. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, your professional worth is not determined by those who fail to see your value. Until next time.